Good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to welcome you to today's webinar, giving you tips on how to conduct thorough market research and how to then use your findings to select the right market to export into. My name is William Barnes-Graham, and I am the Digital Content Manager at Open to Export. We are a government-supported online community helping small UK businesses get ready to sell overseas through our step-by-step articles and guides, regular webinars, Ask the Experts forum, and our Export Action Plan tool. You can find all of these on our site, and you can now in fact find our new webinars page, which will show you all of our upcoming and previous webinars at opentexport.com/webinars. You can ask questions at any point during the webinar using the question box on the control panel to the right-hand side of your screen. We'll get to as many of these as we can at the end. With the questions, we will be reposting them onto the forum following the webinar. We will reassign these questions to your account should you have one, and if you don't have one registered, we'll try to get you registered as quickly as possible and get that question reassigned to you. We don't typically share the slides from the presentation, but we will be recording today's session and sending you a copy of it by the end of the week, as well as uploading it to our website where you can view this webinar and all of our previous webinars. We have three great speakers today. Beginning will be Maria Lampert from the British Library, and she'll be giving an introduction on how to approach market research in general. She'll be followed by James Clowes from the Institute of Exports doing business guides. He will be giving an introduction to some of their country guides, which are a really great resource for any exporter. And finally, we'll have our very own Leslie Batchelor, also from the Institute of Export. And Leslie will be giving some further tips on how to do market research and some guidance on how to use your research to make business decisions. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to Maria, who's going to be starting today's presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, Will, for handing over to me. My name is Maria Lampert, and I work in the Business and Intellectual Property Centre at the British Library. Humans love to trade, and exporting and trade have brought people together, sharing knowledge and expertise and hopefully increasing prosperity for everyone. And whilst the thought of entering a new market can be exciting and alarming at the same time, if I'm honest, the key to successfully entering a new market is to understand all the factors that could potentially impact on your success. And this means collecting the information to give you the knowledge to enable you to make sound decisions, sound business decisions. If you're an SME, regardless of size, knowing where to focus your exports is what will add to or perhaps detract from your bottom line. To make those key commercial decisions, you don't just need data, you need accurate and relevant data that's timely, that's easy to interpret, and that is also an indicator of where the opportunity lies. And that's what this presentation is about, looking at how you structure getting that information. Next, please. When you're researching a new market, you have to look at all aspects of how your business is going to operate. And this means looking at each new market as if it was a new business model and addressing some key questions such as which groups are going to buy your product, which of their problems you're going to be solving, how your product is going to solve the problem and do it better than any of the alternatives that may already be on the market, and how you'll get your product to them. These questions you're seeing now and those on the next slide will form the basis of researching that particular market. Keep in mind, though, that although your business model may operate successfully in one country, that does not automatically mean that all aspects that you're currently using will work when you're operating in another country. Next slide, please. So, as well as thinking about the product and the customer and the problem you're solving, you need to think about any legal issues that you're going to have to comply with, what local tariffs might apply, what economic, political, cultural factors might affect your business, and who can help you make the business work. These are just some of the challenges that there are to exporting, and you've also got language, you've got cultural barriers, and the initial financial hurdles to get over. But being as well prepared as possible with as much information as you can get will greatly lower your risk. Next slide, please. Now, how do you develop a research plan? List the assumptions that you're making. What do you know about the market? Prioritize all of those that are the most business critical and deal with those first. And identify the information that you need to test and to prove the assumptions. Some of the assumptions that you've made will be more business critical than others, particularly an understanding of why the customers should be attracted to your product or service. And most importantly, I think, any issues around compliance. For your research plan, what you need to identify is the information that you need in order to be able to test whether or not the assumptions that you've made about the market you're entering into are going to be correct. Next slide, please. So how do you get this information? Well, there's two methods of getting the information. They're the main categories of research: field research and desk research. And we're going to take a look at what these are. Next. Field research. Field research is essentially getting the kind of detailed information that relates specifically to your business. You can do that. You can collect all your own information using social media by watching how people around you behave in certain circumstances, by talking to experts, by engaging people in your profiled customer group. Generally, if you're going to do that and you have a new product or a new service that you want to bring in, the thing to do is to discuss the problem that you're solving rather than go up to them and tell them that you've got this wonderful new solution. Talk to them about the problem that you see that they have and how they get round it. And by conducting tests and experiments. Now, the extent to which you can apply all of these will vary depending on issues like language and your ability to travel to various countries, to whatever countries you're interested in trading with. But it can be worthwhile talking to all the experts and people who you know have experience in dealing with certain groups in certain countries to find out if they can give you any hints or tips or point you in the direction of anyone else who might be able to help you. Helpful methods for applying applying the idea of engaging with people within your customer profile and conducting your own tests. They can be provided to you by a model for developing your business, which is called Lean Startup. Next slide, please. Now, Lean Startup has grown over the last 5 years, and it's become one of the most influential approaches to developing a new business idea. It places an emphasis on engaging with customers and testing their responses from the early stages of development. There are two really handy tools that make up part of Lean Startup. One is the customer development, which provides a process for talking to customers. The second is minimal viable product, which provides a series of models for testing customer responses. You can find an awful lot of material about Lean Startup just by doing a simple search engine search via the internet, do a search on the web, or you can read the book written by Eric Ries, The Lean Startup. It's a very good book, puts the whole concept of Lean Startup in very simple terms. If you haven't got time to read the book, then have a look on the British Library's website, because we have a guide to Lean Startup which lists some of the key resources that are available. And you can get a copy of the guide via the link that's on screen now, or you can go onto our website and have a look. Next slide, please. The second type of research we spoke about is desk research. And desk research means consulting information that's already been published, whatever's out there in the public domain. You can do this by searching the web using search engines such as Google or Yahoo. You can buy books, reports, magazines, to see what the latest trends are as they are reported in the magazines or the trade literature, or you can use a library service. Now, there are commercial researchers and publishers who produce high-value reports and analysis, and what they tend to do is they analyse and they present government statistics in a readable fashion. They'll also do local in-field analysis of what's really happening in particular markets and with particular consumers in countries all over the world. They'll tell you likely trends for the next few years, and they'll collate some of the best trade publications all over the world and make them easily searchable. They don't tend to look at niche markets though, so whilst you'll find relevant market research, you may not find research that relates exactly to the product that you're thinking of or the service that you're thinking of providing. The next slide, please. The British Library's Business and Intellectual Property Centre, we offer free access to a wealth of market research information for walk-in users provided they have a library pass. British Library passes are free and very easy to obtain. You just need to take 20 minutes of your time and bring along 2 forms of ID. More information can be found on our website, of course. We offer in-house training, so we do webinars, we do workshops on all different aspects of business. They're run by us and by our partners. And we also offer one-to-one advice sessions and ask an expert sessions with experienced business advisors or experienced entrepreneurs or inventors who are quite happy to discuss your business idea with you or your invention with you if you're an inventor. Now the next slide please. Some of the resources that we have a large collection of published market research which will give you, as I said, a sector overview. It'll give you forecasts, it'll give you analysis, but it very rarely provides detailed information on niche sectors. Also, we have newspapers and journals which will provide you with information on current issues, the risks and the opportunities within a sector, which you'll find mostly in the trade literature. It'll give you practical assistance on compliance and logistics, and you'll be able to use some of our company databases, our company information, to track the financial performances of individual companies or those within a sector, identifying potential suppliers and partners. So there's lots of ways that you can use the business information that you can find at the British Library. Also, we have access to newspapers and journals, which will give you a clear idea of the wider economic and political climate. Probably most importantly, if you are thinking of exporting, we also have access to plenty of intellectual property information, and we have intellectual property experts here at the British Library who can advise you on what you need to do to protect your idea, your business or your product when you are trading abroad. You have to make sure that if you do have any intellectual property, whether it's just a trademark or a registered design or a patent, that you have it in all the countries that you wish to trade with. Because if you trade into a country that is not protected by intellectual property, then there is nothing legally stopping someone else from copying your idea and running away with it. The next slide, please. Now, the main Business and IP Centre, the first Business and IP Centre, is of course the Business and Intellectual Property Centre here at the British Library. But we have been rolling out the idea of business and intellectual property centres to the regions, and we now have 6 business and IP centres outside of London. We've got them in Leeds, Birmingham, Liverpool, Newcastle, Sheffield and Manchester. And we also have 4 what are called enterprising libraries, and these are libraries which aren't business and intellectual property centres, but they are providing information on intellectual property and business to users within their regions. And these are in Norwich, in Exeter, in Hull and Northamptonshire. Researching at the British Library's Business and IP Centre or at one of the other business IP centres throughout the national network is really a solid first step to take to broadening your business horizons and knowing where to go, particularly if you want to grow. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Maria. A really great kind of overview of what the British Library doing, some really great tips for kind of conducting market research in general. And moving quickly on, we're going to find out about another resource now from James from the Doing Business Guides. Over to you, James.
Thank you very much, Will, and good afternoon to everybody out there. My name is James Clowes, and I'm from the Doing Business Guides team here at the Institute of Export. We produce multimedia-based, country-specific trade publications in association with various different British government trade bodies. We also work with foreign embassies in London and also foreign investment agencies. Our guides can be accessed online via our main web portal, which is www.doingbusinessguides.co.uk. And we, over the past 10 years, have produced over 100 plus country-specific overseas market reports. We work closely with the Department for International Trade, which was formerly UK Trade and Investment, and incredibly, our guides are completely free of charge to the end user. They can be accessed, as I mentioned, online. We host some of the most widely visited country-specific trade and investment portals available on the internet. Alternatively, exporters can request our hard copy versions in the form of a book by simply contacting the Institute of Export direct or emailing us at info@ima.uk.com. That's info@ima.uk.com. Next slide, please. So one of our most popular guides that we produced over the past decade is focused upon doing business in China, and we've produced two current editions of the China Guide. Over the past 4 years of it being live, we've received over 500,000 unique visitors. We come up first on Google and all major search engines for a global search, and our mobile app has been downloaded nearly 40,000 times. We produce 10,000 hard copies of our printed book, and we give that out free of charge to every single attendee at the seminars, conferences and exhibitions throughout the year, trade mission delegates who fly out to the British embassies that we work with, and also anyone who contacts the Institute of Export direct or the British Chambers of Commerce. And our China Guide actually last year helped to produce an additional 5,000 brand new business inquiries for the British Embassy's commercial sections in China. Next slide, please. So here you can see an example of the contents of our China Guide. Some of the areas that we look at, we give a basic overview of the market. We ask the question, why export to China? We look at gateways into the market, so places like Hong Kong as a satellite for the Greater China region. We look at specific sectors, and generally they come in the form of case studies of areas of business potential within the region. We offer research advice. We touch on things like free trade zone areas that not everybody is aware are actually available to them. We talk about things like marketing and market opportunities and challenges and much, much more. The China Guide is actually 200 plus pages, so lots of information there for you to use at your fingertips. Next slide, please. So here we can see some examples of our most recent projects. China, as I mentioned a moment ago, we worked with the British Embassy in Beijing, the China-Britain Business Council, and various private sector service providers, so people like Barclays Bank, for example, KPMG, we're our accountancy firm, Invest Shenzhen, which are a regional investment authority for the Chinese government, and DKLM law firm. Our UAE guide focused upon UK firms doing business across the United Arab Emirates. We were actually commissioned by the Office of the UAE Minister of Economy, His Excellency Sultan bin Saeed Al Mansouri, to produce the IOE Doing Business in UAE guide, and also we hosted the 2015 UAE trade delegation to the UK. This was where 50 of the top UAE corporate entities joined the UAE Minister of Economy on a 2-day roadshow, and that was held at Manchester Town Hall and also at the Bulgari Hotel in Knightsbridge in London. And then the final example of one of our most recent guides is Germany, where we worked very closely with the British Embassy in Berlin, the British-German Chambers of Commerce, Commerce Bank, Deutsche Post, or probably DHL as you better know them, and also Germany Trade and Investment, who are the German government's equivalent of their overseas arm for their Department for Trade and Industry. So the Germans' equivalent of UK Trade and Investment, or the Department for International Trade as they're now known. The Germany guide was so well received by the British Embassy in Berlin that it's now used within their Overseas Market Introduction Services Packs, or OMISs, as the essential piece of resource material provided to UK companies who are looking to trade with and or invest in Germany. Next slide, please. And here is an excerpt from the main body of the Institute of Export Doing Business in China guidebook. Here we can see a background on China, including details on how economic policy has been shaped since 1978, opening China up to the world with reference to China's transformation into a key driver for the world economy. And those references are taken from the World Bank, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and our partners at the British Embassy in Beijing. Our team have visited many countries over the past decade to research each of our country guides, immersing ourselves in the culture of the market and meeting the British Embassy's commercial teams, various British ambassadors and foreign government officials to gain really a first-hand knowledge of the ways and means of doing effective business in opportunity-rich markets overseas. Next slide, please. Here we see more detailed examples of some trade statistics with particular focus on the property market, property sector in China here. The growth of UK exports to China were actually provided by HMRC and act as a signpost also to the China-Britain Business Council, which is effectively the equivalent of the British Chambers of Commerce in China, who have offices across all of the major cities here in the UK and also in the same way across Greater China. Next slide, please. So in this section of the China Guide, we address some of the regional investment zones in China, or free trade zones as they're better known. And what we look to do is help to inform on the Chinese government's bid to reform trade policy and liberalise certain geographical regions within Greater China, effectively looking to help facilitate foreign investors to cut out the red tape and simplify their move into the market. And one of our supporting partners on the China project was actually one of these free trade zones, Invest Shenzhen. Shenzhen was China's first national innovative city pilot area, and also have a European office actually headquartered in Europe in Belgium. Next slide, please. This section of the China Guide, we focus upon business culture and best practice in building sound business relationships. And so what we look to do here is inform on what to expect, what not to do when entering the Chinese market, and essentially good business etiquette. We introduce within this chapter the concept of good guanxi, which in essence is social or business connections based on mutual interest and benefit. Both Chinese and foreign companies will often attribute their business success to having what they call a good guanxi. Next slide, please. And then at the back of our China Guide, we actually have, in each of our series of publications, we have a database of essential organisations to draw upon. So we look to signpost the user to various trade organisations, British and foreign government bodies, who can help them with their move out into the specific market. The Doing Business in series of publications, they provide an introduction to various aspects involved in doing effective business overseas, and contain a wealth of information on market intelligence, overviews of business opportunities, practical guidance on developing regional market strategy, as well as sector briefing, key business considerations and challenges, practical advice and best practice, and also a list of, as I mentioned, useful contacts both here in the UK and in China. Next slide, please. So to conclude, we have a number of these country-specific guides currently available to anybody who's interested in doing international trade. You can access these online by doing a simple Google search. So if you were to type into Google doing business in China or doing business in India, our guides will be the first unpaid URLs that come up for a global search. If you'd like something actually more physical to use, perhaps you're flying out on a trade mission and you don't have Wi-Fi on the plane, you can order one of our guides in the book form, a paper-based version of the guide, which we will post out for you completely free of charge. So please feel free to contact us either direct via the Institute of Export, or you can call our office here in Derbyshire and Buxton, where I'm based, and you can call us on the number 01298 79562, and we will post you out a completely free copy of any of our guides currently online. We are currently in the process of publishing our Italy guide, Denmark guide, our Spain guide, and then a little bit later on in the autumn we're also going to be publishing our Thailand guide. So please feel free to contact us via our telephone number or info@ima.uk.com, and we'd be delighted to send you out some of our gratis publications for you to use to help inform your research when looking to do business overseas. So thank you for listening today. I look forward to your questions, and now I'll pass back over to Will at the Institute of, at the Open to Export team.
Thank you, James. And yeah, it's a really good presentation, good example of China. There's so many guys that they do, and you can see the links there, and also you can find more information about doing business guides on Open to Export as well. So without further ado, I'd like to now hand over from Open to Export, Leslie, who's going to be talking a bit more about market research and using research to make decisions for your business. Over to you, Leslie.
Hi everybody, I'm Leslie Batch, I'm CEO of the Open to Export project. Very glad to be speaking to you. Obviously two excellent speakers, so I'm not going to carry on and on. Let me just go to my first slide. Because, you know, the emerging markets across the world offer a fantastic range of opportunities for UK businesses, but I have to say that one of the things that they normally let themselves down on is the fact they don't research thoroughly, and this could avoid costly mistakes when they're selecting markets. One of the things that we do at Open to Export is we try and encourage everyone to look at more detail and more practical things than just looking at GDP figures and perhaps the headline statistics for your target audience. We have 5 key areas that we like to talk about, and with your permission I'm just going to run through those in a little bit more detail. So we talk about researching cultures, we talk about how they price in that market. We're just going to have a think about is there a demand and what your trading name is and whether it means something different in another country, and of course how would you deliver. I wonder, could you turn the slide please? Okay, so starting off with researching the culture. I think James just did a brilliant example of how culture can be so very different in different countries. And, you know, I did a trip out to Malaysia and wasn't quite sure what to wear out there as far as women are concerned. And one day went out having been told not just to wear what you wear in the Western world, to find that actually people weren't wearing skirts, and it was a very awkward day, even though it wasn't a long skirt, a short skirt. But I think one of the things we need to know is how we're going to behave, because if we're trying to create a good impression, we need to understand that. We need to understand if they're going to be late for your meeting, and whether, as Brits, we have to be much more tolerant. We have to understand whether or not they want to do business by finding out more about you, or whether they're like Germans who want to be very direct. So there's a question of, understanding that culture, and it's not just, how do I pack it and what colour things should be. But again, of course, those are important issues as well. Most importantly, we want to know how they do business, and we want to know how they want to get paid. We want to know whether they negotiate or whether they take the first price, and we want to know what you're going to do to operate effectively, or how you have to adapt your normal way of working to operate in that market. And we have a very good article on this, cultural differences between the markets, on our website, and there's a link there. I think William's going to send the slides out to you all later on, or they'll be available. May I have the next slide, please? The thing about going into a new market is that you have to remember that the costs that you have here in the UK will change drastically. So you have a basic cost of your product or your service, and then sometimes when you go into a new market, they'll impose duties or tariffs on those services or that product. They're also very likely to impose the local taxes. Here we call them VAT, but across the rest of the world they have different names. But effectively they are always something that you have to contend with, and something you have to be able to evidence from the UK point of view to HMRC that you've either paid VAT in this country, or it is definitely left the country, in which case you don't have to charge VAT. There are rules around VAT within Europe where you do charge, but basically we have a lot of information on the site again that can sort that out. Outside of Europe, what you have to make sure you do is keep an evidence that you've actually recorded the goods leaving the country, not just delivering them to an airport, but actually a certificate of shipment of some sort. So what methods of payments do they normally use in that local market, and how much are they? Because, if you find that they normally use a letter of credit, to your surprise you may find that a letter of credit could be as much as £500 or £600. It certainly could include a percentage for confirming the letter of credit, which would be around about 2-3% of the overall cost of the letter, how much that's going to cost. Checks can cost a small fortune as well, as much as £20 to actually get them cleared. Also, they can take a long time. We need to think about how much that's going to change your price, and indeed whether or not you can afford to absorb those costs, or whether you need to change your price in that new market. Can you mitigate against the risks involved in selling in a local currency? And again, we have it on our website. We have a ready reckoner that will help you understand how to quote and which dates to use when you're talking to banks when you're using local currencies. Again, we've got a great article there called How to Manage International Payments. Please, the next slide. So is there a demand for your product or service? It's quite a big question, that, because, if you're actually thinking about it, I suppose everyone could have some demand. It's whether that's enough demand to make it worth your while, and whether or not you're going to have to modify your product or service to actually fit in with that new market. And when you're looking at these modifications, again, how much do they cost? Be aware of colours meaning different things. There's a lovely expression in China. So they talk about red is very lucky in China, but white means death. But I don't think I've ever heard of that. They have a similar expression to we talk about people being given the boot. In English, they talk about giving someone a green hat if they've been unfaithful. So green has a different connotation there as well. And if you haven't already read it, there's an article on this about assessing demand for your product, which you might find useful. Can I have the next slide, please? So again, these sound like very basic things, but actually checking the trading name and whether it means something in local language or whether it's a slang word, etc., must be top of your priorities to find out. Actually, just doing a very simple Google search is a very good starting point, but investing in using an intellectual property search is a very good idea, because you simply do not want to start trading and operating, investing in a lot of collateral and marketing materials that may be out of date, or worse still, legally may be infringing somebody else's copyright or design rights. So make sure you're clear on this at the beginning to avoid any unpleasantness later on. And again, can you mitigate the risks of your trademark being copied? And if you really are feeling uncomfortable about going into a new market and the fact that people may be copying, perhaps that is not a good market for you to think about. Again, we have these articles, as I've shown here, from the Intellectual Property Office that cover these. Next slide, please. How are you going to deliver your product? This focuses a lot on whether you're going to actually be able to package it and actually ship it. But also, more importantly, for people that are delivering their service support or their order systems and tracking systems online, make sure that the broadband infrastructure is as strong as it could be, because you may find that you have caused yourself more problems by actually trying to interact with people, your customers, online than if you're actually trying to send them emails or send them details through other means. The infrastructure of a country can vary greatly from the main conurbations in the city areas to the outlying land areas and the farms. So just make sure part of your research is what's going on as far as broadband is concerned. And of course, whether your packaging design, imported sound material is appropriate for culture. I did a lot of work in Egypt at one stage and found that all the advertising only carried male figures in that. So if you look at Kentucky Fried Chicken, where we'd see a family sitting down to eat with brothers and sisters and a mum, actually they were only ever men all sitting down together, which I found quite surprising when I was out there. Again, we have an article about different delivery options. Next slide, please. What we do try and encourage you to do is think things through before you go out into a new market, and to think really about your powers and your actual capabilities within your own business. If you go into our export action plan, you will see that there's a great starting page where you think about how you're going to get started and what you need to consider. And then the second section is all about actually market weighting and understanding which of the short list of countries you might be going to able to get to. Within this section, we talk about an action plan. We talk about how this might work. We get people to think about a short list of 3 markets in which they can actually sell, or they have the potential to sell. Appreciate these are 3 quite obscure markets, but let's say, for instance, you have Japan, South Korea, and Uzbekistan. Then we ask you to prioritise each of these markets which you can sell to, and we do this by using the market selection table. So this market selection table automatically gives you your 3 choices from the page before, and then it gives you an opportunity to go through and click on each of the each of the ratings that you would give your own company as far as your ability is concerned. Here you can see we start talking about language and payments, but we also talk about logistics, we talk about ability to collect money, we talk about the legal aspects, and we talk about marketing, and obviously about whether or not insurance is an issue or not. So for instance, if you're looking here, this company that's completing this form says that they have a language skills of 3, and the language skill of 3 means that they don't speak Japanese, which rates as a 2. In Korea, they seem to be the same as they are in any other language, and Uzbekistan is 2, which would be Russian. Working through the table means that you can actually then multiply out the skills, the rating that you give your own business against the lead for that skill within that country, and you can actually develop a process of finding out where you have your weaknesses and where you'll be able to actually manage to move forward. In this instance, you'll see that the rating went out to South Korea. Can I have the next slide, please? We also have a live Q&A session where you can ask a question of any of our experts, and anything that's cropping up through there, you're very welcome to look at your interactive control panel.
Cool.
I think there's more slides there. Or is this where you're going to take over, William?
Yes, I see. Hi. Thank you. Thank you very much for that overview. We are now going to just quickly open the floor to questions. So as you can see on the right-hand side, there's a question panel there, which you can ask questions through. Please do send them in. We've got 3 great speakers who are all very willing to help you for the next 10 or so minutes. So we're going to start with a question sent in by Phil, and I think I'm going to ask James this question, and it's to do with do you have any studies and guides in particular around East Africa? So he's looking at Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda. What kind of guides do you have of that region at the moment, James?
Hi, Will. Well, currently we have a number of guides online for people to view. China, India, Brazil, Russia is also available, and these can be easily searched by just placing into Google or doing business in, and then putting the country in question after that, and our URL should be the first unpaid links that come up. We also have focused over the past few years on some emerging markets. I think Leslie was mentioning before some of the emerging markets, and these particularly in South America. So we also have Colombia available. Venezuela is also another interesting one that we've worked on in the past. Pakistan is also there. And then going forward in the future, we're looking in the next 2 or 3 months to launch projects on Italy, Spain, Romania, Poland. We're also going to be producing our 3rd edition of China. Kenya is going to be one of our major projects for 2017 that we'll be launching in January. And also Australia, which will be getting launched at the World Trade Summit, which is the IOE's event that's taking place on the 12th of October at Gresham House in London. And we're hoping to have some special guests from the British Embassy, the British Consulate General in Sydney. Hopefully there's going to be some members from the commercial team, and possibly even the British Ambassador to Australia involved in that one. So plenty of information and country-specific guides, both already available and also in the pipeline for production and publication in the next month or so. But please, if you'd like any hard copies of the guides that we've currently got available, then please do contact us on 01298 79562 or via our email address info@ima.uk.com.
Thank you, James. And a question from Peter. This might be for you, Maria. And he asks, how do we identify markets suitable for British companies? Is there a database available which identifies which countries favour which different particular British products? So a question around databases about countries' interest in British products.
I don't believe we've got one within our list of databases that would do that. But I'm sure there are ways around to get the answer without looking at, having a specific database that will tell you which British products are popular. We have databases where you can find out, when you're doing your market research, you can find out which companies are exporting and which products are being exported. So that would be one way to do it. As there isn't a database that will tell you which products are popular, you can find out if you have a particular product that you're interested in. You can look at the companies that make that product and export it and see how much they are exporting and to what countries they are exporting.
Thank you, Maria. Yeah, I think as you say, there's also information out there, but sometimes it's just thinking of those clever ways of finding it, as it were.
Yeah, sometimes it's a question of stepping back because people are very interested in their niche markets, and sometimes it's a question of just taking it one level up. If you were interested in guava juice, say, you're not going to find any market research on that particular juice. But if you look at fruit juices in general, then you can find out about the popularity of fruit juices. So there is always a way of finding information. It's just a question of how niche it's going to be or not.
Thank you, Maria. And I think a question here maybe for Leslie, which is, in terms of trying to understand another country's culture and trying to avoid those cultural pitfalls, kind of where do you start in just kind of picking up on those sorts of things? Is it something you can research online, or is it just something you need to find out about through meeting people out there?
I think try and find out as much as you can online first. There's a lot of information out there. Yes, the guides do cover them, but also you'll find that if you talk to your translators or your interpreters that you're going to work with, they'll give you tips. I think it's a question of just looking at how you would normally behave and then questioning how that would adapt into a local market. I think the point about punctuality is hugely important, and I think, just handing over business cards, as I know we all talk about now, but some terrible disasters can happen by just taking a card and putting it in your back pocket. It's a very insulting thing to do in some markets. So, I think research as much as you can online first, and then start talking to wherever you can to natives of that country. Can I just say?
Oh, sorry, Leslie.
Can I just say that the Open to Export site has often offers business opportunities that come in from all the different consulates and high commissions from around the world, and it might be worth searching biz opportunities to find out if there are any markets that you want to try and operate in, or where you think there might be a demand.
And Leslie, while we've got you on, another question we've had in is kind of when can you use a distributor to help you with your research? As some companies do talk about getting their distributor to help them. Is that something you'd recommend, and when would you recommend doing it?
Distributors aren't available to everybody or in every market, so it might be just a question of checking to find out whether the market you are looking at actually has a distribution network. Some of them, especially in the European countries, have a system of agencies that actually support everything that's going through. Whenever you think it's important to work with a distributor as far as research is concerned, just be a little bit cautious. Do your own research first and then start asking them for local information and local feedback. And I think that's when to start doing it. But you should be aware that it's an opportunity first, because most distributors will want you to work with them. Perhaps it's a question of just being a bit cautious, finding out as much as you can first before you start working with them.
Thank you, Leslie. And yeah, if I'm keeping asking the questions, we've got a few more minutes, so we'll try and get to at least a couple more. And I think I'll ask another one for Maria, which is just a question from Gary about what does the British Library kind of business webinars and sessions cover, and how in depth do they go?
We cover all sorts of things. We cover social media. We cover lean startup. We also we have an introduction to intellectual property, and we cover the four main types of intellectual property: patents, trademarks, registered design, and copyright in depth. Show people how they can do some free searching for themselves via databases that are freely available on the internet. So it's quite a wide range of subjects, but we also have our workshops here. And again, we have an introduction to business information, we have an introduction to intellectual property, we have the 4 searching workshops, we have workshops that are run by our partners, a financial workshop, we have what next for your invention, which says whether you should try and protect it with intellectual property or whether you should just take it out into the market. It changes. Every 6 weeks or so, we change the range of workshops we offer, so it's always worth having a look at our website and seeing what the next 6 weeks is offering.
Thank you, Maria. And just had a question in from Jessica. Jessica is exporting a textile collection of luxurious printed textiles paired with an environmental education package, and she wants to take this to a soft launch event in Brazil. And she asks she wants to present the educational information and sell the products at the conference, but what type of paperwork does she need to complete to enter the goods via the airport, and how does she know there's a customs charge on these goods? Leslie, I'm going to open that to you.
Well, Jessica, you are actually doing something that is quite complicated. It depends very much on the value of the goods that you're taking out there as to whether or not it's sensible for you to take it out there and ship it as an export, or whether you want to bring the things back. If you want to bring the things back, you might be looking at producing a carnet. We can help you with that if you want to contact the Institute offline. We're very happy to help you explain how that works. But it's a question about the amount of value of the goods and whether or not you are happy to lose them, or whether you feel that you want to bring them back. There's always ways of doing these things, but yes, I'm afraid paperwork is key, especially in a market like Brazil. It's very active, and you do need to make sure you understand what commitments you're making as far as tariffs are concerned and as far as local manufacturers are concerned. We all unfortunately have to face these things. There's a certain amount of discrete protectionism that goes on within those markets.
Thank you, Leslie. And one more question, I think, and it's just another one for you, James, and it's asking whether you do a guide in Egypt.
Yes, we have worked on a couple of guides in the past for Egypt, and we are currently in the process of producing a brand new Doing Business in Egypt guide. However, currently we don't actually have a digital version online where we're updating that. However, we do have other guides focused upon the Middle East. So, for example, we have our Doing Business in Saudi Arabia guide, which can be accessed online by doing a search for Doing Business in Saudi Arabia on Google, and also our UAE guide, which, although isn't Egypt-centric, part of our UAE guide talks about using the United Arab Emirates as a stepping stone to other markets in the Middle East, so that may be of use to you. Again, a simple search for Doing Business in UAE guide on Google or any of your preferred search engines will be able to take you to our URL. Or if you want to give us a call or drop us a line, info@ima.uk.com, and we'll post you out some of our Middle Eastern publications. But please keep your eyes peeled, because we will be having an Egypt guide being produced in early 2017 for people to view online, and also we'll have a digital version and an app if you have a mobile device, as most people do these days.
Cool, thank you, James. And on that note, I think it's probably time for us to wrap up. I'd like to remind everyone that we will be posting any of the questions asked today onto our forum in the aftermath to this webinar. So please do keep your eyes peeled for these. You'll get an email notification once that is done. Also, let us know if you would like to have your question withdrawn in that process. Thank you once again to Maria, James, and Leslie for the presentations and answers. Doing thorough and well-organised research is a vital part of the exporting process, so I hope everyone's found the session useful, and thank you once again to the speakers. Next month, we're hosting 2 webinars as part of our now annual food and drink feature. These will be on setting the right price and how to best approach export documentation in the food and drink sector. We've been working with the Food and Drink Federation and the Food and Drink Exporters Association on loads of articles, case studies, and guides around these webinars, so please have a look on the site for these. You can register to them and also see all of our previous webinars on the new webinars page at opentoexport.com/webinars. I'd also like to point out that the deadline for submission to our next Export Action Plan competition is coming up quickly. Complete and submit your plan by October 14th for the chance to win £3,000 cash towards your international growth. The final will be taking place in London at Going Global in early November, and the competition and tour have already helped a great many small and medium-sized businesses to realise their export ambitions. So please do go onto the site and have a go at that, because I think it's a great day and it's a great opportunity for your business. That's all from us for now. Please take the survey as you exit to let us know what you thought of today's webinar and give us suggestions for improvements or future topics. Thank you for attending and have a great rest of the week. Thanks, everyone.